Good afternoon, everybody. On this wonderful June 22nd, I'm currently in Buckskin Valley, which is a high elevation valley in southern Utah, situated between the Tushar Mountains. You can see a tall Delano Peak in the distance at over 12,000 feet, and whatever mountain range that is, I don't think counts as one. Regardless, though, I want to talk a bit about the cool sagebrush ecosystem we have here, and just give a breakdown of what's going on, some of the things we can find out here, and also test out my microphone. I finally got a wind-resistant microphone. So no more messing around with a towel trying to use it to block the vibrations from the wind, as it's constantly getting blown off. So let's jump right into the video. Now, as should be plainly obvious out here, the dominant species is Artemisia tridentata, also known as big sagebrush. Everyone knows it, especially live out west. It's the most common plant out here, especially in the high, cold deserts like we are in. I'm not exactly sure what variety it is, but I think a lot of them might actually be Basin Big Sagebrush, which is interesting because Basin Big has gone quite rare, at least since the west was settled, because it's used as an indicator for high quality farmland, because it only grows in really loamy soils, which is the kind we have right here. So farmers would basically look for stands of Basin Big, clear it all out and plant whatever it is they wanted to grow, and as a result the plant became increasingly rare until it was like almost completely wiped out, at least in terms of pure stands, although conservation efforts and the lack of expansion of farming in the region has led to it making a comeback. And there are, of course, some relictual stands. Those actually look pretty tall. Big sagebrush grows, or Basin Big grows over your head, like well over 6 foot tall at times. So depending on how that looks, it might give a giveaway for what type of variety we have in our hands. But yeah, it's nice that we have this native plant here, but unfortunately, not all plants are native. This grass right here, for instance, I'm pretty sure is Agropyron cristatum, or Crested Wheatgrass. It's a non-native and invasive grass, not super invasive. Well, you know, invasive can be kind of a loaded term at times, and a bit nebulous, because plants that grow wildly out of control and compete with natives, if they're liked, will not always be considered invasive, while ones that do will be considered invasive if they're just annoying. Like cheatgrass is useless as forage and just gets in your socks and shoes, and no one likes it, so it's considered very invasive. While this plant, despite growing absolutely out of control here, like all this green is mostly Crested Wheatgrass, it's still not considered super invasive because cows like to eat it, and it's relatively mild-mannered. Like, it won't fill your socks with annoying seed heads, and but whatever, let's move on. Yeah, this sagebrush is getting pretty tall as I keep moving on. This is about 4 feet tall. Some of the stuff over there looks even taller, actually. Like, that could be over my head even once we get into the thick of it, which is, again, a good indicator that it's Basin Big. Also the fact that it all seems to have one distinct stem. Let's just focus on there. That's not going to show up so well. I'll show some of the other ones. They definitely have a distinct stem, or one distinct stem instead of many spreading stems, which is more indicative of, like, say, Wyoming sagebrush or mountain sagebrush, or really any of the varieties that aren't Basin Big. I've got some more cool wildflower. This is Sphaeralcea coccinea. I've seen a few of them already, but none in such nice sunlight for filming. Of course, the Scarlet Globemallow, which is a bit of a funny term for any globemallow because we're all sort of scarlety in their flowers. What separates this one from the rest, though, is its leaves are very highly divided. There's a few species like that, but none so much as this, I believe. And this is actually, I think, the most common globemallow you'll find anywhere around here. Lovely plant, and a strong competitor in the face of invasives that we can see here. Yeah, there's really not much else other than this sagebrush and this Crested Wheatgrass, unfortunately. Well, there's a few other grasses, though, like this guy, Areacoma hymenioides, or Indian rice grass, of course. As it implies, it was used as food by the first peoples, being pounded into a flour that could be made into bread. You can actually do that with pretty much any grain, but it works much better with certain species, which is why we don't just grow random grass for food. Okay, this is sort of what I was talking about, the Basin Big right here. These are all pretty tall for sagebrush, like 5 or 6 feet. I mean, this guy right in front of me, I'm holding this camera at eye height, and it's a little bit taller than me, so it must be roughly 6 foot, maybe even a little bit above. No, that's about as tall as my head. So, pretty tall specimen for a sagebrush, although it's about in the middle range of how tall Basin Big gets on average. And some of these are even taller, of course. Like, let me check out this one really quick. Ahead of me, that might be well over my height. Yeah, this guy's pretty much a foot, maybe a foot and a half taller than me, so it's almost 8 feet tall. Really huge for a sagebrush, at least these day and age, although you don't used to find them much more commonly that height before all the Basin Big was cleared out for farmland. So hopefully it starts to recover a bit more, because it really is a bit of a unique habitat that we got in the west. As the name might imply, it's found often at the lowest of altitudes of the 3 major subspecies of sagebrush, although it can go up to 9,500 feet in elevation, particularly I imagine in the southern parts of its range, which we would definitely be in right now. Again, this valley is about 7,000 feet up, so we're pretty high right now. This one's only about 5 foot tall, and again, there's quite a few that are over my head in that little forest back there. Yeah, absolutely lovely patch of what is definitely Basin Big sagebrush. Not more than probably a quarter of an acre in size, but still wonderful regardless as a relictual patch. But unfortunately I have to reckon with some less wonderful aspects of this habitat, which is these piles of wood here. This is what it's commonly called by people like me, slash. And it's basically just a pile of wood where the BLM has come in and cut down a bunch of pinyon pine or juniper trees to make way for, well, really everything else, because there's a sort of perception that juniper and pinyon pine are invading other habitats such as sagebrush and native grassland, which is kind of true. They have been increasing in area, but the reasons are sort of misleading, and the BLM doesn't talk about how it's, you know, a lot of overgrazing that's leading to this, because pinyon pine and juniper are not cows' favorite source of food, so naturally they don't get grazed, and what happens is they'll be the only species to survive year after year for cow grazing, so they start to grow in more. There's also been some minor climatic shifts and fire regime shifts that have really helped their spread. So yeah, under the guise of helping sage grouse and other species, mostly sage, actually pretty much entirely sage grouse, even though it's really to help cattle and cattlemen, they cut down a ton of these trees and just leave the wood piles here, which is kind of gross. I mean, at least they'll break down and turn back into, you know, fertilizer for other plants, but it still looks really hideous until then. And basically pray that other species will grow back, which eventually they do, of course, but it's often invasives like cheatgrass, which thankfully we don't have here, or even more active in this case, crested wheatgrass. Again, a species that's not always considered super invasive because cows like it, even though it's definitely not native and competes with native species quite strongly. But oh well, you know. Well, thankfully we can always find at least a few nice native species. This guy is Chaenactis douglasii. Not sure what the common name is, maybe Douglas's Dustymaiden or some other one. I don't know what the most common is, but I don't really care either. It's a member of the sunflower family, as its flower may give away one that does not produce any ray florets, of course, so have a typical sunflower petals, as they be commonly called. I mean, they are petals, but they're just not belonging to one flower, they belong to multiple flowers, because of course all members of Astragalus have a composite head of many multiple little flowers. If you were to tear that apart, you can sort of see all the individuals there. It's very easy with this species at Chaenactis. And also right here, this most likely is Hedysarum boreale. Species we found quite broad range. Actually wasn't expecting to see here, but I feel like I've seen a few individuals. It could also be a species of Astragalus, I guess. That would be this guy right here with the pink flowers, by the way, if I didn't make it clear. And the pinnately compound leaves, which of course gives it away as a member of the pea family. Not sure what else to say about it, but it's a cool plant. It's nice to see it in a sea of invasive grass. Another super interesting kind of plant, one I didn't even know about until recently. This is a Physaria, I'm pretty sure. It's a member of the family Brassicaceae, which is a cabbage family. It might not like most members of it. Its common name is Bladderpod, for reasons I think should be fairly obvious. I mean, there's a lot of very goofy common plant names, but collectively, Bladderpod is a pretty reasonable one, I feel like, all things considered. Also, this very interesting pea family member I see growing right here. Can't get too close to it, unfortunately. I mean, after this microphone, which has been working brilliantly, I don't think any wind is showing up at all. I'm recording despite it being fairly windy today. I'm going to get a nice macro lens, but regardless, this is clearly a member of the pea family, but I have no idea what it is. I'll try and identify it for you guys, but I'm just not quite sure what it is. And of course it's growing out of a large matted cushion plant looking thing. Almost certainly a member of Phlox or Linanthus. I mean, perhaps Phlox hoodii. It's hard to be sure, but I will try and look that up for you guys as well. It's a fairly large cushion too. Like, here's my shoe for comparison. You can see them growing all throughout right here. All those little matted cushions on the ground are the same species, so, and it's definitely native, which is awesome to see, of course. What else we got around here? That's some nice cow poop. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's definitely some cows mooing fairly loudly in the background. It's probably too distant to show up on camera, but if I bump into a cow, that'd make for a really awesome video. Oh, there's another good one. This, of course, is Ipomopsis agreggata. Probably one of the most popular wildflowers in the West. It can be have super white or pale pink flowers like these guys, or super scarlet red ones as well. It's a member of Polemoniaceae, a super important family out west, or it's because it's almost entirely endemic to the western states and certainly North America in general. And yeah, it's just a really lovely plant. You can find it all over the west, from here into the Wasatch Mountains, and of course outside of Utah as well. Lovely plant, these long tubular flowers that must be pollinated by something. You know, red flowers normally indicate a plant is bird pollinated, but I'm not sure which one pollinates these guys, if any. And of course these are white too, so you know, not all are going to be, it's complicated to say the least. Another plant I learned about quite recently, this is Packera lobata, or sorry, not lobata, multilobata. My bad, forgive me for that mistake. And if you look at the leaves, it should be a little bit clear why. Because it's got these very super uniquely lobed leaves, which is a dead giveaway for this plant. You can recognize it and then see these beautiful flowers as such as typical sunflower family flowers. You got a good idea on your hand. It's so strange. I don't know what prompts plants to evolve and make such bizarre leaves at times. Like, what's the advantage of this versus just say a normal branched leaf or whatever? And of course you got another lovely Ipomopsis agreggata. Commonly called gilia agreggata in some books still. It's been moved to the genus Ipomopsis from gilia a while ago, but still the old name persists at times. What an incredible place out here. It's not super uncommon to find bones out here, but it is always cool when you do regardless. And this is of course a vertebra of some animal. Not sure which, it's not super big, so maybe it was belonged to a deer or a small cow or something totally different, who knows. But regardless, I found another plant I like a lot. This is Agropyron Chaenactis, another member of Astragalus, which does not have any ray florets or petals, if you want to speak colloquially. What's a little bit interesting about this guy is that Agropyron is a genus mostly of plants, I think almost entirely of plants that do have ray florets, but these guys for some reason don't. Maybe they just like to be better this way, who knows. Well, I really hate to end this video anticlimactically, but the species I wanted to finish with, which is a type of Aphelon, the Aphelon fasciculatum or Aphelon uniflora, I can't seem to find anywhere now. I know there was one growing around here somewhere, but it just seems to have vanished. To be fair, they are pretty hard to find, and they're, even though they're colorful, they're quite small. So, I don't know. Just look at this grass while I send you guys out. Thanks for watching and see you next time.